this is going to be a quick video just demonstrating how to create a mod for Stormworks. I'm going to make it very simple, and we're going to be using a couple of my tools that I wrote. So I'm going to start off in Blender, just showing you how to set up a mesh. So I have here a new project. What I'd recommend the first thing you do is, if you haven't already done it, go into the Blender preferences, into the key map, and change the spacebar action to search. So I'm just going to make this mesh interesting. Okay, so we're going to use this mesh. So once you've modelled the mesh, a couple of processes need to be followed. So at the moment, this mesh is currently called cube. So if we want this to be a specific colour, double click it and we're going to rename it. So for a specific colour, you just type in the RGBA value for the colour before the name of the object. So I'm going to make this bright red. So you do 255 -0 -255 and it's followed by a slash. So this will be now bright red. It won't be paintable. If you want it to be paintable, you can just leave it, or you have to use the colour 255-125-0255. So now we've done this, we need to check the materials. So this currently has a default material. We need to tell the game what sort of material we'd like. So if we want this to be a standard material, we're just going to put a 0 before it, followed by a slash. To be a standard opaque material, there are two other materials. There is an emissive material and a transparent material used for glass. The emissive material is value 2 and the glass material is value 1. And 0 is the opaque material. So we've currently got the names set up and the material set up. The next thing we're going to do is triangulate it. So I'm going to hit tab, I'm going to hit A, so it's already selected. And then I'm going to press Control T. Control T will triangulate all of the faces. Doesn't really matter how this is done, this is just required to ensure that the mesh can be built properly. Once triangulation is complete, if you've set up space to be searched, with the mesh still selected, hit space and type edge split. And then we're going to edge split by edges, the first one. Edge split faces edges by vertices. Once you've done this, you'll notice that you can select each individual face. So I'm going to delete the camera and the light because we don't need these. And the only thing we want is this. So this mesh is now ready, so I'm going to export it as an OBJ file. And I'm going to export this into a folder I created earlier. I'm just going to call this testmesh.obj. So now we need to convert this mesh into a format recognisable by the game, which is the .mesh format. So to do that, there are two tools available. Both of them are available on GitHub. So I'm going to head over to the GitHub repo for swmesh2xml. So this is the version with the user interface. So if we head over to the latest release, which is version 0.1.8, and download that, this will give you a zip file. I'm going to put this in the same folder that I created earlier. I can't find. Alternatively, if you're running on a system that doesn't support this version, this only supports Windows, you can also go and download the version without a user interface. This is cross-platform and it can be run on other systems, so I'll get this as well, and I'm going to put this in the same folder. Once you have these, you need to extract this. If you just extract the Netcore API folder, I'm going to put this here. You're going to head into this folder and run swmesh2xml.exe. This will display the window like this. Once you get this window, if you click open, browse to where you saved your mesh, your object. So here, and it's this. We're going to open that. You will see that we have a file here. Now you can make any final changes if you need to here in this file, potentially renaming some things if stuff is named incorrectly. Check that your vertices are correct. Click to mesh. This will convert it to a mesh. If you get any issues, any errors during the conversion, an error message will pop up, and the details of this can be found in the manual, which can be found on GitHub. Now we have the mesh. We're going to click save. I'm going to save it here as test mesh, and that will say that I've saved it successfully. So if you want to run the cross-platform converter, you need to use a terminal of your choice. I would assume if you're running on Linux, you know how this works. You'd have to run it using Wine or Mono. But on Windows, you just want to open a terminal. I'm going to open in Windows Terminal. You can use Command Prompt or PowerShell. Either one doesn't matter. And what we're going to do is we're going to type /swcpmc. Then we're going to type the input path, so which is test mesh.obj, and the output path is going to be test mesh cpmc dot mesh, and press enter, and it's done. And we will see here test mesh cpmc dot mesh, and this will be identical to this mesh. See, they're both the same size. Once you have your mesh, you then need to find an XML definition to build the actual file from, build the actual object for the game from. I've already gone and got the window XML, so this can be used, and this is done as simple as, we're going to edit this, ++. As we can see, I have the file here, and the thing what matters here is the data name here, mesh data name. So all I'm going to do is change this to the name of my mesh, which is test mesh.mesh, and that is done. Now obviously if you want to change the location of voxels, change collision boundaries, then you would need to change all of these surface data, change the voxel data, and change any of the data down here. I'm not going to go into that in this video. At the moment this is just demonstrating how to quickly create a mod. So now that's done, we need to create the .slp file, which can be used with the mod loader, Stormloader. So I'm going to create a new zip folder here. I'm going to call this folder test_mesh_mod. Once I've created that, I need to prepare the folder structure. So this is fairly simple. I'm going to create some new folders here. This one I'm going to call definitions. Into definitions, I'm going to rename this first. This is now renamed. I'm going to chuck this into definitions. I'm then going to create another folder, and I'm going to call this folder meshes. Into meshes, I'm going to put testmesh.mesh. I'm also going to create a file, just a text document file. We need to make sure that this is an XML file. So, and this needs to be called .xml. The exact formatting for the SLP can be found on the manual for Stormloader. Inside metadata.xml, the following data is required, which can also be found in the manual for Stormloader. Once you've created metadata.xml, you can put all of this into the zip folder that you created for the mod. Check it's there by double clicking on it. I've realised this is named incorrectly, so I'm going to rename it. Now, to convert this into a .slp package, all we need to do is right click, rename, and put the .slp extension. You now have a mod. To load this mod into the game, you need to go and get the current release for Stormloader. This can be found on Stormloader's GitHub page, following this link, which will be in the description. We'll go for the latest release, which I released at the beginning of this month, and we will download this. We'll save this here. Once we have the file, we're just going to extract everything to Stormloader v1.04. We're then going to find stormloader.exe in the extracted files, run that. It's safe, Windows will not care. Allow access to the internet, though this is not necessarily required. When you open Stormloader, it will say that it needs a bit of information from you, so we can do that. And to tell it where the game is installed, in my case, it is installed in my secondary drive. Select the root folder. You should have a similar format to this. Once you've done that, click Next. This can be left blank. I'd recommend it's left blank. Now, to add your mod, click Add Mod from File. Browse to where your mod is saved. Select it and click Open. The mod will automatically load it. If you select it, you'll be able to see the name of the mod, the version, and the author. This mod is now loaded into the game. If you wish to unload the mods, you can press the X. If you wish to reload it, you can press the tick. If this loaded, if you click Launch, Stormworks will launch. Your mod will then be visible in the workbench if you select parts. You can see here, okay, it's named wrong, but we can now place that modded part. And we can spawn it in if we click Spawn. We can see that the part has no collision mesh. This is because it needs setting up in the definition file.